a lot of the dialogues that we have heard from the Chinese side, the dialogues are a complete retelling of history. According to them, the Chinese empire, the Celestial Kingdom, owned practically 3/4 of the world. It had direct control of 3/4 of the world. So there's still a lot of room for the Chinese to expand their claims. And they got all kinds of reasons for their claims. Sometimes they're cultural, sometimes they are maps that are accidentally discovered. Yes. Sometimes there are artifacts that they interpret as essentially coming from ancient China, which proves that the Chinese were there. And if the Chinese were there, obviously they were there as the rulers. They couldn't have been there any other way. So, but in the Western way, what is it? It is basically to erase history and to then rewrite that history in a very garbled way, and to basically, of course, write the history since their influence or since their conquest, unfortunately, in a very specific way. That's been the Western method. Now, look, I mean, now they are, frankly, they have completely forgotten, although they continue with this fixation on Russia, and they continue with regarding Russia as an enemy, they have completely forgotten a little something called the 1991 collapse of Russia. By the close of 1991, certainly by the beginning of 1992, there was no longer a Soviet Union. President H.W. Bush immediately stepped forward when Ukraine was the first part of the erstwhile Soviet Union to declare itself independent, that yes, we will recognize you, but you have to hold a referendum. And of course, the then Ukrainian government held a referendum. And in that referendum, a majority of people wanted Ukraine to be independent, a huge majority, if I may say so. But whether the referendum was accurate or not, one has no way of knowing. I mean, you've seen referendums in North Korea, where 99.9995% of the population says that they agree with whatever policy the regime has. That balance 0.0005 are people whom the Kim family wants to execute and do execute subsequently. But anyway, so the United States recognized the independence of Ukraine. That is from 1992 onwards, as I recall. And thereafter, what has happened is at one time, it was about 40%. Then it came down to around 30%. Now, according to the Ukrainian government, it is less than 20%. It's quite likely. You have seen, for example, minorities in Pakistan. They have come down from around 35, 38% to less than 1%. You have seen minorities in some other parts of South Asia also come down drastically. So it could be, but originally, in my calculation, it was around 40%. But now the Ukrainians say it's about a little less than 20%. Okay, let's do that. But then the point is very simple. It's important for a truly democratic country to have a government which is inclusive of all its people. And if you have a population that 20%, a group that's 20% of the population, I think it's important to treat them with respect. Now, we saw in Sri Lanka what happened when under SWRD Bandaranaike, an attempt was made that Sri Lanka should be a country only for Sinhalese, that the Tamils had no business being there. And the effort was to drive them back to India. Lal Bahadur Shastri was a kind-hearted man, and he, instead of intervening in that, he permitted a large number of Sri Lankan Tamils to come and settle down in Tamil Nadu. In my opinion, he should have instead been very firm and told Mrs. Bandaranaike that, for heaven's sake, nothing doing, do justice to these people. But current government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa, I think they understand that very well. In fact, Mahinda Rajapaksa speaks Tamil fluently. very, very fluently, as fluently as speak Sinhalese. So there's no problem. So my point is very simple. From, I would say, early 92 onwards, the Ukrainian government has been heavily influenced by Ukrainian speaking Ukrainians. The difference is actually very slight over Russian speaking Ukrainians. Now, I mean, the former regard the latter as being somehow, possibly more loyal to the Russian Federation than they would be to the state of Ukraine, which is, in my view, is unwarranted. But there has been systematic discrimination against that particular section of the population. And that discrimination reached a very, very high point towards the last decade of the previous century.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.